All right, employee retention. Plainly put, employees are sticking with their employer when they have remote work options. Yeah. I mean, when something unexpected comes up, can your employees easily pivot to remote work like we had talked about in the beginning? Can they easily do that? Or do they have to decide, should I take time off or not? Maybe they are in a situation where there's a spouse and they can be like, okay, can you take today off so I don't take today off? Or should I take the day off and you go to work? And especially if it's an extended period of time, it's like if you don't have remote work options, if an employee has to completely step away from their position, that's not just rough on the employee, that's rough on the company too. So again, it's like it's to your advantage as a company if you have remote work options, because if you have your rock star employees and they have something unexpected come up, and they're like, hey, I need to go. Like we talked about this in the last one. If they have a family member that has had a medical emergency and they're like, I got to go take care of this person, are you okay with them just leaving for 2 weeks? And if I don't have a remote work option and I'm not getting paid, I'm not going to be like taking phone calls and emails.
Mhm.
I'm going to be like, hey, you said no remote work. I'm remote. I can't work.
Mhm.
It's like you can't have it both ways. And it seems like companies like to be like, no remote work, unless like we need you for something.
It was interesting that the third most popular reason for a job hunt was to look for a more flexible work arrangement. And I know you mentioned, being able, if one spouse can work, one cannot, but you think about people who don't have a spouse. Like having a flexible work arrangement is essential. You don't have the other person to, pick up the slack when you have things going on, or if you need to get to pick up a kid, if you need to get to an appointment, you need to take the car in. So that flexible work is huge.
I mean, and lots of times the people that are your best, team members, they're the ones that are the most mobile, right? And so it's like, is it worth losing your best team members because you want everybody to be in the office 5 days a week? Is it worth it to you to do that?
Yeah,
You
because
know,
yeah, if you're being inflexible and someone else, is saying, "Hey, yeah, we can match that or give you a little more salary and a remote work environment."
yeah, I just feel like some people in these executive leadership positions, they're not thinking these things through clearly enough. I know one of the suspected reasons is they want to slash the workforce without having to pay a bunch of severance or fire a bunch of people, right? But it's like when you're doing that, like, some of your best people, they have options, right? And yeah, they might not be like, okay, today's my last day because I'm not coming back in the office, but they're immediately starting to look for something different. And as soon as they find it, they're out. And so it's like, is that really what you want to happen? It's like think through what are some things that could happen as a result of these decisions, and how does that going to affect other things?
And right now, with the increased use of AI, because some of the current thought is like, well, if we, lose some headcount, we can replace them with AI, so it won't really matter. So, and so going down that path, I saw the first glimmer. So we're starting to get research out of can AI truly replace people for jobs? And the current state of it is not exactly. So this was some research coming out of MIT. I heard it was this week. And so the early results not there. So AI will continue to grow, but I think we'll know more in the next 5 years. And if it ends up being, if that's truly what was going on, where they're just trying to reduce headcount by not offering remote work, let's say you reduce headcount and you're thinking AI will replace some of those and it doesn't, then what happens? So then if you're like, oh, well, we don't have a remote work policy, then we're looking to recruit. or retain our workers, and you've already been very legalistic and like, no, 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 and someone else is being a little more innovative or a little more flexible in their offerings, then I think it's going to be really, we're in a, big change in some of the some areas of work. So the next, 3, 4, 5 years are going to be interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll have to come back and have another conversation, Ken.
Yeah, 74% of workers agree that remote work opportunities make them less likely to leave a company.
Mhm.
77% would actively seek or be willing to consider a new job if their company's flexible work policies were to be reversed. Yeah, 72% of hiring leaders, this was a statistic out of the UK. So 72% of hiring leaders in the UK say their business has lost employees to organizations that are less tied to traditional office hours and locations in the last 6 months. That was from about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. So yeah, I mean, again, like if the rock star people, your top employees, they have options, and the people that don't have options are typically the people that you're like, I wish they would leave,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, you really, I think you're the rock stars that you talk about. They're the ones that are, they're doing what they need to be doing, and I think they're more sensitive to the culture, to the flexibility, um, because they expect a higher quality. I think they're giving a lot to the employer, so I think they expect more from the employer. So when you talked about that earlier of that, okay, what's in it for me? Because it's a negotiation, it's a working together. So it's that trade-off of work for compensation. So yeah, I could see that. And then the other part of the employee retention, if you think about members of our workforce, let's say something does come up and they're, for a day or two a week, maybe they need to help care for someone. So as you look at flexibility, you could also have that flexibility in your remote work and even in your hours to where remote work could play into that as well. And that's going to help retain employees who otherwise might not, stay with your organization.
Yeah. So the question here is, will companies risk higher turnover if they tighten in office requirements? I mean, the answer seems obvious to me. I mean, we'll see exactly how it plays out. Um, I think it's designed to have some turnover, but it's like, what type of turnover are you having?
Well,
What type of employee?
you see the first ones that were, forcing people back in, it started with the banks and financial services, and then it moved into some of the tech sector as well. But it seems like the ones that made headlines are the larger organizations doing that. So, and I'm curious, and I don't have it in notes. I didn't see anything here of like, I would be curious to look at to see what it is across different sizes of organizations, like or small businesses, and look at it from industry and size of organization, because I think that would be another perspective that would be interesting because the ones that I see most often that grab the headlines are the larger, JP Morgan. It's, what is Amazon doing? What is Apple doing? What all of the big ones, especially big tech, big financial services.
Yeah, that is one of the things I've seen pointed out in the data is, the data is showing that in office is it's pretty flat. It's still pretty up there, and what they point out is, these big companies having the RTO mandates and initiatives are the ones that grab the headlines. It looks like, oh, everybody's coming back to the office, and it's like, yeah, that, if you look at the data, like a lot of people look at the card reader data, and so they're like, yeah, we can see the badge swipes, and they're not increasing. So even though people are being told to potentially come back to the office, some of them are just not doing it. There's just no follow up, or there's no. It's like it's like, okay, Dad said this, but yeah, we'll wait till he gets really angry before we actually do it.
I mentioned the call-in show that I listened to earlier. There was a guy that did call in, and he worked in some type of purchasing, like military purchasing, something. And he was like, I literally, there is no reason for me to be in the office. So as he got a return to office, he was like, yeah, you can find somebody else to do my job, or I can do it remotely. So he was like, but apparently they were like, he said, so yeah, I'm still working from home. So it worked out for him.
Yeah, like I have a feeling like, the rock star people, they're like, yeah, I'm not down with this. And they're like, you know what? This doesn't apply to you. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I think the phrase you repeat is there are always exceptions.
Yeah. And so this last part here, I think you've kind of mentioned this throughout about the benefits of retaining employees. It just sets off a chain reaction of other types of benefits like the reduction in onboarding costs, reduced acquisition and training time, increased overall productivity. It's like nobody's on the learning curve, right? Because everybody's there. And to me, that's always an interesting indicator with companies. Like if it's the same employees over a long period of time, it's usually a good company. It's like when your company contact, whoever, whatever industry, whatever you may be in, it's like if it's always a new person every 3 months, and especially if it's always a new person and like it's their first job, right? It's like, something doesn't seem right over at this company. It's like a ticking time bomb. It's like, are they going to be able to diffuse it before it just completely blows and crumbles everything? One other thought I did have about some of these staunch executives too. It's like, like I had mentioned that question earlier about, are they willing to risk this higher turnover for tightening in office requirements? And I do feel like some of these executive leaders, they really don't care, right? They're
Mhm.
like, yeah, this is what we're doing. Like it or don't like it, work here or don't work here. And some of us sit back and be like, hey, that company is going to lose some money because that they could, and they have, these guys have golden parachutes, right? They're like, fire me, I'll just take my severance package and move on to the next town, right? And so they have very little to lose. Well, I guess this closes out our conversation on the company advantages of remote work and our entire series. So, what did you think? What did you think about what we shared? Are there other aspects we didn't mention that you might be curious about? Let us know. Also, we do have some ideas for our next conversation series, but we haven't made any firm decisions yet. So, is there something else you have in mind related to video communications that you might want us to explore further or talk about? Let us know. We look forward to hearing from you and helping you with video communications. Till next time.